If you are a frequent listener to the podcast, you know that we have been sponsored by Fuji Sports for quite some time now. Whether you're looking for apparel, equipment, bags, or accessories, Fuji Sports has got it covered. Go to fujisports.com to see the latest selection of everything you need for your Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, or MMA journey. That's fujisports.com. Let me take a minute to tell you about RŌL TV. If you're looking to take your Jiu-Jitsu to the next level and supplement your BJJ education, then RŌL TV has you covered. RŌLAcademy.tv has over 1,500 videos covering individual techniques, positions, and concepts, including seminars and workshops with top-level competitors and instructors like Chris Wojcik, Robert Drysdale, Aaron Hurley, Emily Kwok, and more. Whether you are a beginner or more advanced student, RŌL TV is the online platform that can take your jiu-jitsu to the next level. What's up, everyone, and welcome back. If you haven't already, please hit the like, share, subscribe, download, listen, and whatever other button there is, and leave us a review wherever you do listen. This makes sure that we can continue bringing you the amazing guests and content that you've come to expect. Today's guest discusses the evolving perception of jiu-jitsu, the significance of the black belt, and the personal journey that practitioners undergo. He emphasizes the importance of resilience, mental health, and community in the practice of jiu-jitsu. Here's the RŌL Radio with 4th degree BJJ black belt, 1st degree judo black belt, and owner of Revolution Dojo in Katy and Houston, Texas, Jeff Messina.
Welcome to RŌL Radio.
And we are live. Jeff, take number 17.
Yeah.
This is not working in our favor today.
Got my fingers crossed. We'll make it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining me. Thanks for jumping on, spending a little bit of your day with me and having a conversation between two jiu-jitsu guys. You've been on the mat for a very, very, very long time. And I just learned that we have some common roots that we'll get into it in a moment. But before we start the conversation, I want to run something by you. Recently I came across this phrase, this quote, and I'm curious what's your take on this. Small minds talk about other people. Good minds talk about events. Great minds talk about ideas. What's your take on this?
Well, I'll start from the first one. The small minds talk about other people. Yeah, I really not a fan of gossipers and trash talking. You know, it's real easy to talk trash online or behind people's backs, and I want to try to avoid doing that and being around others that do that as well. And it's definitely a sign of insecurity why people do that, or jealousy. What was the last one?
Good. The middle one was good minds talk about events, and the great minds talk about ideas.
Yeah, I mean, the great minds have a vision and have desire to accomplish things, and ambitious people usually. So they want to talk about things. They want to make plans and execute them, not just take the things that come their way and talk about the news, so to speak. They want to make their own news. And that's kind of like, I watch the news, but I'm more concerned about the news that I could control. And I feel like I can control most of my life outside of what God gives me. You know, what God controls everything, but I still feel like I'm in a situation where I can make most decisions to dictate where I go in life.
Why is it so difficult for us to mind our own business and really focus on what we truly can control versus get in this vortex of gossip, trash talking, and talking bad about people and pointing finger? There's a lot of that, especially online these days.
Yeah, I think especially with online, we're in an age of comparison where people are showcasing either their best side or only their good sides or a fake side, you know? So it's hard not to compare yourself to others. When you're seeing other people's, you're being invited to view other people's lives in your face by your phone now, where it used to not be as much. And I guess gossip, small talk and all that is entertaining in a sense. It's beyond concern of someone else. It's entertaining, and people unfortunately delight at other people's hardships and problems and things like that. So you'll never see me like in my comments get into a long debate really about anything or defending myself too much if someone's talking shit, because it's like I don't have time for it, nor do I even take it personal. I'll look at me if they keep going after me, I'll look at their profile or something, and it's like it's got a fake name or a fake picture or some dude still wearing a COVID mask or some shit like that. So it's like, bro, you would never talk to me like that in person, and I hope you're doing good, but I don't take it personal. I'm not going to get involved, and I don't allow that kind of stuff around me in person. That's a big part of what I do at the gym is and what makes my gym successful. I mean, I've had my gym for 20 years, but we have a lot of medals on the wall and won a lot of championships as individuals and team, but it's the culture that keeps people here for so long. And I rarely lose people to other schools. And typically if someone leaves my school, if they're in the area, they come back. So
Where's
I
this?
kind of danced around your question or expanded on your
No, no,
question.
no, no, no. It's good because I love to pick your brain on this because
Mhm.
this is deep, especially you started a couple decades ago. I mean,
Mhm.
what was it, 90 some, right 90s, this
97.
yeah,
Yeah.
97, right? So
December 97.
you've been around the block for
Yeah.
a while, to say the
Yeah.
least, right? And things have changed since then. The
Oh
jiu-jitsu
yeah.
has evolved since
Uh-huh.
then,
Mhm.
and today we live in this digital world. And is this digital world a benefit to our students, or is it a hindrance? Because it seems like it's not so easy to navigate these days.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you wanted to talk about what like social media and internet affected jiu-jitsu, for sure right now, jiu-jitsu is at the highest level, or MMA is at the highest level we've ever seen. The top guys. All right. There's more information out there. We used to, when we started, the only technique you would learn would be what you learned in class, or maybe if you're lucky, you had a VHS cassette, a Hensel Gracie, John Kucut DVD or CD. It's not CD, cassette, or
Yeah.
the MMA. I think it was MMA TV or whatever it was called. They had a big booklet that you could print out the papers, or sometimes they would have articles in like the karate magazines. And so there was not a lot of information out there. Full Contact Fighter in the early 2000s had a newspaper that came out, and I subscribed to that. There was, at least in my area, I'm in Texas, you'd be lucky to have 2 tournaments a year within driving distance. There was one black belt in my state, Carlos Machado, when I started. The highest guy in Houston was a blue belt. So yeah, the internet and social media and the growth of jiu-jitsu, I believe, has made it a lot easier to get better. There's tournaments every weekend here, pretty much in Houston. But I'd say the average has gotten worse. The average guy is not as good. And because it's getting popular, it's more and more popular. I think there's 100 gyms in Houston. So what happens is you get a guy that gets a black belt that shouldn't be a black belt, then is he going to be promoting guys at the right standard? No. And then they just create this cycle of shitty jujitsu, and then it just waters it down, just like, all the traditional martial arts. I'm sure it didn't start that way. And we'll probably end up seeing changes where you see little kids with black belts. And so it's like, it bothers me sometimes seeing the culture go in that direction, but it also encourages me more to do the right thing in my gym. So people will call us sandbaggers and this and that, but there's just a few of us that are still going to do it right. In my era, if you were a jiu-jitsu guy, you were also going to fight MMA or at least spar MMA sometimes. It was different. You're going to go to Brazil, you're going to compete. It was just kind of the way I came up, and the standards that really no one made me do, but I held them for myself.
Do you think that's where jiu-jitsu is going? I mean, at some point, maybe a decade or 2 or 5 decades from now, this will turn into what we are noticing with the traditional martial arts, where it's going to get watered down so much, where it's just going to be
Yes,
it.
for sure. And I think that happens anytime something gets so big. It loses its quality control, and there's no license you have to open up a school. I mean, you can open up an o.g. school and be a white belt. You can open up a gi school and be in your garage and be in, Gracie, whatever, there's a university or whatever, where there's you don't have to be anybody, like have any knowledge really. You could be learning on from online and teaching classes that way. So yeah, you know, again, I think the best is coming more and more. Like people are getting better. The age of information's out there, and the evolution, you know. When the bar is so high and that's where you start, then it's really easy to take it to the next step. So it's evolving more and more and more. So the guys will be better, but I think the average is only going to get worse because there's just more of a population doing it.
Is there a way to fix this in your mind, or
I mean,
this is
yeah,
just unavoidable?
just the guys that are doing it right, you know, are just whatever happens in the rest of the world, I'm gonna do it right. My guys are gonna do it right, and they're gonna be competent on the mats or on the streets and be better people because of it, you know. So I'm not gonna jump on whatever bandwagon that whatever people are doing because it's a popular thing to do, you know. I'm gonna do what I think is right, you know, that is in line with my morals and what I think jiu-jitsu should be.
But that has to be hard. I mean, working against the grain of what, I don't know if majority, probably not majority, but a big part of what we're seeing out there, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, not for me, and there's a lot of people that, so it's kind of like this, and I think any martial arts school owner, if they're honest, would agree with me. The average guy that comes here, we're in my area, we're considered one of the top competition teams. All right, we have a lot of team trophies from IBJJF to the Jiu-Jitsu World League to Naga to whatever, all the smaller ones. But nobody comes here really for that. And I think even the most competitive gyms, AOJ, Atos, I have students that went there or that people that came from here. I know people over there. And everyone agrees that the majority of the students of any school, 80% or more, are hobbyists.
mm-hmm.
They don't know who, you know, the Rotolo brothers are, or, you know, whoever Mika Galvao is, or maybe even Gordon Ryan. The average guy doesn't know, or if he knows, it's just whatever, and they might not compete. They do jiu-jitsu, they hang out with their friends, they decompress, they learn something, and they go back to their normal lives. You know, they're not the guys that are being affected by so much the culture of jiu-jitsu. We see it as people that are more invested in it, you know, and then of course there's plenty of people that are, you know, that are influenced by that. But what I have to remind myself of that when I see things that I don't like, when I see some of the bigger names in sport doing really dumb stuff and looking silly, and I try to remind myself that it doesn't really matter. It's not going to affect me. It's not going to affect what I love. I'm not going to change my jiu-jitsu and my philosophy on life based on them or on a bigger picture, how the world has changed. You know, jiu-jitsu is just a reflection of what else is going on around the world, you know.
I mean, that's
So,
very true. That's very true. It's just like jiu-jitsu is being taken into our normal day lives. The normal day life impacts what's happening in jiu-jitsu. I mean, it's all cultural, right?
yeah,
Cross references comes across, right?
yep. You get such a wide variety of people that come into the gym, you know. All walks of life come in, but there's only a certain type of person that sticks with it, right? People that have a hard work ethic and they're not quitters. So,
Well, so that brings me to that, $1 million question that many answer and many ask in jiu-jitsu. Is jiu-jitsu for everybody?
jiu-jitsu is for everybody. Being a black belt isn't. Being a competitor isn't. But I think everyone would benefit from jiu-jitsu, but not only a few people are going to stick with it. So I guess that way it's not for everybody. Because hard things aren't for everybody. They should be, but a lot of people run from their first taste of adversity. And
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu is going to give you that day one. You know, you're gonna taste some humility, and you're gonna get beat. You know, if you're at a decent school,
I feel
for
like
sure.
I feel like you're gonna get beat for a while before you
For a
are not
while.
beat.
Yeah, for sure. Especially now, like you come in my school. I mean, for the longest time, I'd be the only black belt. There's 10, 15 of us sometimes. We got classes sometimes 60 plus people. You know, so you got a lot of tough guys.
I mean,
So it is humbling.
yeah, for sure. So how does one walk into your or any other academy? who knows nothing, zero, knowing that this is going to be hard. That's one. Two, is going to be very humbling. But to be honest, they are working against the odds.
I mean, I try to make it a very pleasurable experience for them for their first day, to reassure them that everyone was a first day guy at some time. You know, I have intro classes that I try to push them to. They're only 30 minutes long. There's no sparring. I say stick around for the next class, you know, and that's the regular class of all levels, and people spar, and I encourage them to spar early. But myself or some of the higher belts are gonna take them under our wing, roll with them, but make sure they don't get hurt, make sure other new guys aren't going with them, give them a pleasurable experience, a humbling experience, but a safe, positive experience, like where they realize that, man, I could do this, I could get good, I'm not going to get really hurt here. The guy could have hurt me, but you know, he was still letting off the chokes or the arm bars or whatever easy, not just smashing the shit out of them. So first impressions is real important, you know, and they won't come back.
That's very different in comparison to what we have experienced a few decades ago, right? I mean, there was no intro classes when you started, were they?
There was no teaching. Like I showed up. So I started with Saul Solis, who's like the godfather of MMA in Houston. I mean, he helped train Rico Rodriguez for the belt, Tito Ortiz for years, all the Hammer House guys like Kevin Randleman, Mark Coleman, Mark Kerr. These are all dudes that came through early on, and Yves Edwards, Tim Crater, a lot of my close friends I met from Saul, and it was a truly tough guy gym. Like I learned what to do and definitely what not to do from him. He, like my first day, this was 1997. There was no mats, so we'd wrestle in the boxing ring. The boxing ring was canvas. So after day one, like you had no skin on your feet.
I was about to say the mat burns are.
Yeah, man. I'm like, I want to do jiu-jitsu. And they're like, cool. All right, let's go get started. And they're like, let's roll. And I go, what is rolling? I go, sparring. Okay. I was like, what are we doing? I haven't learned one move, right? And some dude gets on my back and I like slam him backwards. Bam. They're like, you can't do that. I go, I guess I know one thing, you know. So it was very unorganized. There wasn't many people in the class. There wasn't many people around, and it was kind of like I got in just a few months after it was even open, you know. But yeah, and it was literally like, I mean, Saul is awesome. He died a few years ago, unfortunately, but it was truly only the strong survive, and it was a tough guy gym. If you were weak there, you weren't welcomed. And that wasn't my attitude, that was theirs. I was always helping people and trying to encourage them and teach them. You know, early on, I just kind of fell into that role of just mentoring and helping people. And I just became an asset in the gym. So, I mean, literally, I've only paid for jiu-jitsu for like maybe 6 months of my life. And I didn't ask for anything. I was just being helpful. And like, oh, man, if you could help clean the mats or whatever, you know, I'll take care of you. Like, cool.
Well, but let me ask you this. I mean, you talk about tough guy gym, and I can relate to that. And I think anybody who started, you know, around that time can you know, will tell the same story. I mean, it was survival of the fittest. If you're not tough, you can go. Like, we don't want you around here. This is we go hard. We don't go smart. You know, but so what made you stick around? Because from the other perspective, you're describing what's happening today, where you take care of your students. You're trying to make their first class, first week, first month very pleasant. You're trying to retain, versus that didn't exist. That was not even on the horizon. Forget about existing. Like it non-existent thoughts.
Yeah.
And you stick around. I mean, nearly 30 years later, you're still here. And why? Why didn't you quit back then?
I mean, because I got good at it pretty quick. I was, you know, this was 27 years ago, so I was a lot younger. I was pretty athletic. I grew up thinking I was a tough guy, you know.
Were you a tough guy?
No. I mean, I got in a lot of fights, but, you know, I lifted weights and was aggressive, you know. So I hung around guys that thought they were tough guys. Getting in a lot of fights doesn't make you tough, right? It might make you dumb. I didn't know what to do. I mean, just being aggressive, right? So saw the UFC, and I was like, this is amazing. I want to get into this. And I never did martial arts growing up. My mom wouldn't allow me. But when I started doing it, so why didn't I quit? Because I was getting beat by guys that if I had seen in the street, I'd be like, I kicked that dude's ass so easy, and then it didn't happen, you know? So I was like, if they can do it, look, I'm younger, I'm stronger, I'm meaner, I know I could get good at this, you know? So I just stuck with it. And jiu-jitsu gives you, in life, you need to have a taste of success in something to believe in yourself, right? So jiu-jitsu will quickly give anyone that. You quit getting tapped out as much. Then you start tapping people out. Then maybe you get a stripe. Then maybe you go do a tournament and you get a bronze medal, and you train a little harder and you get a silver medal, and you train, then you get your blue belt, et cetera, et cetera. It gives you these small incremental tastes of success and a little bit of reward, right? So I think that's what keeps you in, and why, even though most people quit jiu-jitsu, I'm willing to bet it has the highest retention rate of any martial art. You know,
You
people
think so?
skip with,
You
I think
think
out
that?
of the other martial arts, yeah. Because most people are like, yeah, I did karate for 3 years, got my black belt, boom, done. You know, I think so. I don't know what to base that on, except for that I see people that a lot more regular people do it a lifetime, and I haven't met too many people that have said I've done karate for 30 years, or I know a ton of people, as you do, that have done jiu-jitsu for 20 plus years. Ton.
Yeah.
You know, maybe
Yeah.
because that's our circle, but I don't know anyone that is actively done and continuously doing karate outside of maybe the owners of schools, you know?
Well, I think it's one of those unique activities which, first of all, doesn't matter which age you start, you can really anchor yourself. You can begin safely, but also
Oh my
the
God.
longevity of the activity. So you can continue doing it for decades.
Yeah.
And you can change the capacity of your involvement. You can change how hard you train, and you can continue being successful with it. I think that's very unique to jiu-jitsu. You don't see this any other sport, I would even
No.
go. Like if you think about swimming, like you can swim, but can you really do a competitive swimming for extensive period of time? I don't know. I mean, CrossFit, I don't know. Like
No.
I feel like it. I might be biased here, but I feel like jiu-jitsu is unique in that sense.
It is. You can make, progress at a very old age. You might not be able to compete or perform as well, but you can still grow and learn and teach and still be part of a great community with a great culture. And I think that's what makes jiu-jitsu unique over the other martial arts, is the bond that people have and the culture that it helps create. You can meet someone on the other side of the world, and if you both really train, you're probably going to get along. You're probably going to have similar belief systems, or some characteristics that you could vibe with, where like you're not going to see that as much in the other martial arts. I mean, I've done them. I've spent a lot of time doing. I'm a judo black belt and done Muay Thai and MMA and boxing and everything, and those are all great. But I'm probably biased too, but I do think there's more of a brotherhood in jiu-jitsu than any other martial arts, and probably any other sport. A lot of people in the military say when they get out, that's what they were missing, was the mission of accomplishing something and the brotherhood of the people that they're around.
Why do you think that happens in jiu-jitsu and not in judo or Muay Thai
I think judo
or
has
wrestling?
it. I think judo has it, but I think also maybe the culture of judo is more traditional, where it's maybe the Japanese culture being more traditional. Maybe it's a little more cold, the culture. I could be wrong, and forgive me, but there definitely is a bond amongst judokas, but I don't see it still as strong. Maybe because it's not as worldwide, it is as popular, more popular probably than jiu-jitsu. At least at one time it was, but I don't think here I know it isn't, and maybe because you don't have as many people around. Not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some judokas on the show, and that's pretty accurate statement.
Yeah.
I feel like
I'd like to.
in US, judo
I would like to
is
hear
not
that
as
question
popular.
answered from like a very well-known judoka, or someone that's all that they do. Is like, what's the difference in the culture to them?
Yeah, that would be a very interesting conversation. But there are definitely differences between them. And but look, from I feel like sometimes we might be the victim of our own success because jiu-jitsu is so free fluid and kind of chill back and without these rules and regulations. at the same time, this gives these people opportunity to promote freely, and this is what you were referring at the beginning of the conversation. A guy in a garage can be promoting people who are left and right, and nothing is stopping him.
Yeah.
Because there is no organization overseeing this. There is no rules around this, and we kind of can technically do whatever we want, right?
I mean, there should be. I mean, the IBJJF has criterias and stuff, but if you're professor and you're not involved in it, then it is kind of like free reign. Then it's just kind of, well, you're supposed to do this, but if you don't, there's really no true consequence. Where with
Right.
at least with the IBJJF, you have to have a paper trail. You got to have people sign things off, and but it's still like could be, you can work around that, but at least there is some kind of standard. And just like in judo, you got USA Judo, and you got to go through all the same background checks and safe sports and courses and stuff like that in order to get promoted. So at least there's something.
Well, there's hope, I think. I think we are kind of leaning in the right direction. It's a very small process, but I think, all of this is going in. This is what we talked about just a moment ago, that evolution, that change from what was 25, 30 years ago to what we're seeing today.
Yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu is very different as far as activity and sport, isn't it?
Definitely.
Let's go back a little bit. Before we start recording, I learned that you come from the same roots, Carson Gracie Sr.
Yeah.
I mean, that's first of all, that's great to hear. I started with Carson Gracie. He was my first instructor. I got my blue belt from Carson before he passed on. What was your experience during that time?
So I never trained with Carlson Sr. When he was alive. So I'm a black belt under Rodrigo Medeiros. Carlson Gracie Sr. black belt from Rio de Janeiro. His school is in San Diego. And the way I met him was one of his students moved to Houston, Tim Crater, Crazy Tim. He fought in the UFC, and he came to Houston and became my jiu-jitsu instructor at Sol's for a while, and basically brought me into the team. And I went to Brazil right after that, went to their affiliate called Nova Geração, and that's where I was training. I went back and forth to Brazil many, many times over the last, after that, I've been 8 times in like a 10-year period, and then I go visit Rodrigo. But basically just started flying their flag, but I never lived in San Diego or anything like that. So
did you get this sense of traditional Carson Gracie Senior team, meaning it's all physical, it's all smashing, it's all
very
plow them through the wall?
Casca grossa,
Casca grossa.
Tough guy, pressure. Everyone's mean, at least mean looking. In the early days of the Worlds, Carlson had a sick team, Walid Ismail and Pitachi and Mario Sperry and all them. And then a lot of those guys made it really big in Pride. By that time, Carlson moved to the United States, but it's still planted the roots. And Rodrigo is a very aggressive guy. But his jiu-jitsu is more of a guard player, actually, due to like an injury he had when he was a little bit earlier in his jiu-jitsu career. So you do have guys from Carlson that had a very good guard game. De La Riva, Rodrigo is definitely one of the best guard players. Everyone would say he's the best guard player of all the Rodrigo's, Carlson Senior's guys. So so I've been with them since blue belt. So that's been a long time.
A long time.
Yeah.
Do you ever reflect on all of this? Sit back in the chair and like, damn, 30 years.
I know.
Sometimes, most people don't stick around 3.
I know. I've been a black belt. This will be 17 years as a black belt, and I have students. I'm at a point where I can go to tournaments, and I'll fight another black belt that hadn't even trained when I was already a black belt, you know what I mean? And I remember being that new black belt, fighting these guys and being like, or competing against these guys, be like, fuck, he was a black belt before I started. And now I'm that guy. And I could still compete against some of those guys that were black belts, that we're a black belt before. One of my good friends, and he's on our team, Binara Patel, he has a school here in Houston. He just got a 6th degree black belt. And I remember being in Brazil in 2001, at the Worlds, and he won that year as a black, and I was just a blue belt. It's like, holy shit, man. It's just incredible,
Does that make you feel accomplished, or does that make you feel aged?
Maybe a little bit of both, Unfortunately, being a black belt today, there's so many, you know what I mean? You see, not to say of course, certain people don't deserve it, but some people, a lot of these people wouldn't be getting it back in the day, and it's just so commonplace. And that's to be expected, as it grows and gets bigger, more people get promoted, and, but it's a lot more commonplace, than it used to be. So I'm still very proud of it, but we're not like the outcasts in the world, or, there's a lot more than just a few of us in it these days.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being white and blue belt and traveling hours to a seminar with like purple belt or brown belt. Like, I remember that. Forget about black belts. Like, put that aside. But like a color belt. Yeah. You travel for hours just to do a class with them. I mean, did you have the similar experience way back in the day?
I mean, I used to, when I started, like I said, there was only one blue belt in my whole city. And I would go up to Dallas all the time and do privates at Carlos Machado's gym and train with him. And seeing a black belt then was like seeing a rock star or something. You were in awe out of respect, and you just didn't see them very much. And then when you first get to start training with black belts, you think they're freaking warlocks or something, or some secret, and then you come out later, you're like, no, they're just normal guys, most of them.
Yeah.
So
do you feel that the value of black belt in the eyes of society has been diluted in a sense that there are so many of them out there today? I mean, you have hundreds per city. I mean, it's just like every academy has, from a handful to dozens.
Yeah. For sure. It's lost its value to the average person, and how can it not? I mean, I've been in Starbucks or coffee shop and see a mom with their 5-year-old kid in there wearing a black belt. You know what I mean? And I remember seeing that when I was a lower belt and being like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous, But I think
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. We have the more traditional arts, which that most definitely reward that black belt rank to much younger kids. And that's justifiable in their eyes. At the same time, we have this art of jiu-jitsu, which many consider as the most effective today. That's the one that gives the most benefits. And again, I might be biased here. I am biased here, but that's what essentially how it's being viewed. How come some of these parents don't see that? Do you feel like the value of the black belt is getting diluted because of the amount of black belts? But then, more importantly, how come there are still parts of pockets of society that don't understand the value of what jiu-jitsu is, and they lean into these other martial arts, which might be more appealing? I don't know. I sometimes struggle with that. Why parents are not looking at the true value, and why they're choosing the other martial arts versus jiu-jitsu?
I mean, the parents aren't educated on what's good and what isn't. Even the ones that come to jiu-jitsu, their primary thing at first is, hey, what is closest to where I live, or what's cheapest, and how do they treat my kid when I get there? Only a few really do research and know that this school is a more quality school than that school. And maybe once the kids start competing, then they start having a closer look on what is the better schools around. And as far as the parents picking another martial art over jiu-jitsu, I mean, because they don't know any better, or they have a background, a bias to like a traditional martial art, maybe that they did it, or they have friends or someone that did that and pushed it. But you're seeing less of that. I'm getting less and less kids coming in that they did taekwondo at this place and they wasn't really into it, And I think I'm willing to bet that we have more jiu-jitsu schools than we do, taekwondo and karate schools now. At least in my immediate area, I definitely could say so, at least of what's visible.
You think that is, in some sense, taking over that martial arts market?
Absolutely. The UFC started that trajectory a long time ago. Quickly showed the martial art world what works, you know. So that was a big impact on what drove me to jiu-jitsu and not doing karate or kung fu or something, and many, many others. And now you got people that start jiu-jitsu that have never even watched the UFC, even adults,
Oh, yeah.
you know, the early ones. So they're just learning about it because a friend does it or a sport. And now they're just doing it mostly for sport, not necessarily even for self-defense. The value of the belt, I don't see it as that's a kind of hard one. Is it devalued? It is definitely at least perceived to be devalued. But again, like, because everyone else is doing it wrong, or a lot of people are doing it wrong, doesn't make me devalue mine or my students. And I know that there's plenty of amazing people out there, but I think maybe the perception of it is because you can see all kind of people that definitely shouldn't be wearing a black belt, you know, on their social media.
It still takes a very long time to
Yeah.
achieve the rank of black belt.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of work, right? I mean, I don't know what the percentages are, but it's probably, you know, the vast majority of people don't make it to black belt.
Majority of people don't make it to blue belt. The majority of people, I've seen statistics, you know, but it was like at least like 90% of people quit before a blue belt, and then at blue belt, I don't know, at least 50% of those quit, you know.
Why do you think it's so hard to get to that blue?
You know, people in the early parts is you're discouraged because you're losing a lot, getting beat a lot, you're sore a lot, you know. And as you get older, some people have a hard time making the time for it, either lack of discipline with other things that get in the way, or just real life things, you know. I get it. Person has a real career and kids and trying to balance all this stuff and family. It can be hard.
How do you recall your path to the blue belt? I mean, do you remember getting your blue belt?
Yeah, absolutely. It took me 4 years because there was nobody to promote. And like I was saying, when I started jiu-jitsu, I did it just for fun and learn how to fight. I didn't have any idea that one day I'd be doing it for a living, right? I was in college. I had a toddler, almost younger than a toddler. My son was 97. The son was a year old when I started. I had eventually primary custody of him, so I was really busy. So in the beginning, I was maybe once a week, twice a week sometimes, and then when I had free time, I'd go in more, right? So I did the best that I could. And, you know, I used to be in the music business after school, so I didn't really expect to do this for a living. And then as I trained more, I finished school, I had a little more time, started training more, competed sometimes. I even did MMA, amateur MMA, the pancration style with the slaps as a white belt. Competed as a white belt, and then eventually I got my blue belt. The guy that gave me my blue belt was a guy named Silvio Braga. He was part of Gracie, they call it Gracie Baja Pitbull, and he was from Terrasopolis. And then he moved from our academy. Saul was my coach, but Saul really wasn't, he wasn't a black belt or anything, so he couldn't give out rank. So he'd have different guys come in through the years. And then Silvio is who promoted me. So I remember that day.
Was that a big milestone for you?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Just to get out of the white belt and have a blue belt was huge back then, you know.
So you became the leader.
I wouldn't say the leader yet, but I was definitely one of it wasn't a very big school, so that's not saying much. But I was one of his go-to guys if he needed to me be the mad enforcer and hurt somebody or beat somebody up.
Is that right?
I was one of those dudes.
I feel like there's a story associated with this.
There's a lot, you know, a lot. But I was definitely a guy that people would come to for questions, and I'd be the backup guy if he couldn't teach classes and stuff like that, you know.
The Met Enforcer, that was pretty, maybe not common, but that was a thing, wasn't it?
I mean, it still is a thing.
It still is a
thing. It's just done, the way I do it is different than the way than when I was one, you know. I mean, he basically, Saul would tell me to kick this guy's ass, and I'd find out later, like he'd go, no, you guys are doing Vale Tudo, like MMA fighting. It's like, okay. And, you know, we'd go hard, you know, and find out later he just didn't like this guy or something, you know, wanted him out of there.
I had Chris Howder on the on the show, and he was
Hmm.
telling us, the traditional old school challenge matches.
Yeah.
He gets called from from his academy as like, hey, I need you to be here and here at this and this time, and here it goes down. And
Oh yeah.
um, I feel like things have changed since then, but yet we still have this competitiveness,
Hmm.
in a sense, maybe in a safer way. But this happens all the time everywhere. I mean, there's just, hey, listen, this guy needs to be put in place, and
For sure.
needs to happen. The humbling factor is a big lesson for some, isn't it?
Absolutely. So the way I do it now, if some guy comes in kind of with an attitude, I'm gonna match him up with someone a lot smaller, a lot weaker looking, but is skilled, that could handle him. And that's either gonna show them two things, like, hey, I need to humble myself and learn, or B, I'm gonna make excuses and never come back. So it's either gonna sell them one way or the other. Doesn't happen as much, I think, because the majority of people coming in already have some knowledge or expectation of what to expect. I think back in the day, we get weirdos from other martial arts or just guys off the street thinking they're tough, and now it's super common for people just to have an idea. Oh, that guy has cauliflower ears. He must be a UFC fighter or something like that. So people, I think, are a little more aware. So you're getting less of these random challenge guys come in, or people coming in with an attitude.
As much as in the past, these challenge matches, it was kind of in a attitude of, I want to show them that this doesn't work or this does
Yeah.
work, depending which
Right.
side you are on.
Yeah.
What is the goal behind jiu-jitsu today? You have guys coming in daily, weekly. I mean, new students are rolling through the doors, depending on the season and so on. But what is the objective?
It depends. I think the objective is for the individual to answer. Like, my objective of what I do and what I teach is different than maybe the guy that wants to come in and lose weight, to gain confidence, to be an MMA fighter or whatever. So I think everyone comes in primarily, the first thing, learn self-defense, how to defend themselves. But what keeps people here after, okay, say blue belt, you already know you can defend yourself, or you feel pretty comfortable that you could. What's keeping you there? It's the people around you, the culture, the friends you've made, what it does for you mentally. The helps you with your anxiety and your stress. It helps you decompress after a long day. Those are the things that matter the most. Is the relationships and the mental health aspect of it, more than just getting tough. And of course, competitors. Not you're, Only a few people are like Megaton Diaz that competes from the first worlds to
Right.
now. I haven't competed in 2 years, but I'm not stopping. I've just had to focus on some other things for a little bit, but I've competed almost every year since I started. I still enjoy it, but that's not my focus on jiu-jitsu for me these days. I'm still trying to get better, be the best person I can. My goal is to make you the best person you can be on and off the mat. However I can help aid that. And if you come to me looking to do jiu-jitsu, I'm gonna try to help you believe in yourself better by putting you through some hardships and helping you believe that you can push through it and obtain things that maybe you didn't think you could obtain prior. Not just learning some new move. It's so much bigger than that.
So would you say, with all this being said, would you say that jiu-jitsu is more physical or mental?
I mean, it's both. I think probably in the beginning it's more physical. I mean, I'm a big proponent on being physically fit. I think you should be running, lifting weights, doing cardio, eating right, and training jiu-jitsu. And you need the technique, but if you don't have the body to be able to pull it off, it's not going to work magically. Get two guys that are equally skilled, the more athletic guy is gonna come through. But at the same time, the mental side of things, many people that have strong minds will overcome the others. They're the ones that will not quit when times get tough. Some of my most talented people that ever walked through here, that are just genetically gifted and everything comes easy for them, when they start having a hard day or hard match, or they quit. And a lot of my best students and the people that I've seen achieve the most weren't necessarily that great of athletes to start. They just had a bigger heart. They became decent athletes or even great athletes, but they didn't have that naturally. A lot of people that come to jiu-jitsu, this is their first physical thing that they've done good. They didn't come from normal sports or anything like that, you know.
So if that's the case, well, I recently had a guest on who said that tapping, giving up, takes place first mentally in your head before the physical pressures begin.
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
Yes. I mean, that's why some people tap to pressure, side control, or they feel claustrophobic, you know. Some people tap super early. You know, it's a reflection of your personality. If you give up quick in life, you're going to give up quick on the mat. You will learn through jiu-jitsu, like, hey, I don't have to tap so quick. You know, you'll know your threshold eventually. Like, that was almost choking me out, and yeah, that was a little uncomfortable. And I think when you push that threshold of knowing when and not exactly sure when you should tap or when you should give up is going to help you in other parts of your life not give up when things get tough. I guarantee that, you know.
How is that translation take place? I mean, like, we see this all the time. I've seen this. My students, my academy, and all around talking to everybody. It feels like longer we train jiu-jitsu, more resilient we
Yeah.
become in life.
Yes.
Why is that translation so easy? Or is it why is it so that connection? Why does it take place?
Because it's hardship that you can overcome. You know, there's a saying from an author who was like probably the first self-help author named Napoleon Hill, and I always love this quote. It said, "Success begets success. You get good at one thing, you get good at other things." You know, so jiu-jitsu, if you're not a quitter, if it doesn't expose that you're a quitter, it does build resilience. And resilience in one part of your life will carry over to other parts. That's why wrestlers are tough and they don't give up. That's why people, you know, in certain branches and certain jobs in the military are a lot tougher than other people because they go through hard ass training, you know, and they see through it. It doesn't kill them. So they believe, okay, if I could do this, then everything else is easier. I mean, jiu-jitsu has given me a belief to make other things in my life a lot easier.
Is that the objective in life? To go through hardship, to get tougher, and to
It's one
create
of
that
them.
resilience?
I enjoy self-inflicted hardship. I enjoy putting myself through a hard journey to accomplish something, you know.
Does that give
But
you bigger satisfaction of accomplishment?
yeah, I think the biggest satisfaction is the journey. You know, you get the belt, you get the medal or whatever it is. The journey is what made you grow. Is where you learned, and
But
really
a lot of people don't see it that way. I mean, look, like we both know this, that when we are white belts, blue belts, even sometimes purple belts, we are chasing the shiny object. We want that submission, we want that medal, we want
right.
that victory, we want the hand up. I mean,
I mean,
that's what we're chasing.
it feels good to get rewarded, but once you have achieved those things, most people can look back and say it was the journey and the growth and the experience of it all is what I enjoyed the most and what I benefited the most out of it. You know?
A few moments ago, you said you were in music business at the beginning, all of this, and you didn't think that jiu-jitsu would be your livelihood. This is what you would be doing for life. Do you ever reflect on this from a sense, if jiu-jitsu didn't happen, if you didn't go to that first class, where would you be? What would you be doing?
Man, I would be in the music industry probably, and I'd be doing well because I was doing well before. But what made me get out of that, I was kind of like at a crossroad. I was a club promoter. I was a partner in a club, so I had partial ownership of a club, and a big part of doing club shows. I mean, I did hundreds and hundreds of concerts for about 10 years, you know, while I was doing jiu-jitsu, and it was conflicting in my health and my life and my morals in a lot of ways. So a lot of it was staying out late at night. There's a lot of partying and stuff like that going on. And then just the culture of that business is just trash. You know, it's all about money. Everyone's backstabbing everyone. Everyone's selling each other out and ripping each other off. And I was just like, I can't be part of this, man. These guys are losers. You know, it's not my culture. You know, I liked music and I liked a lot of parts about it. And there were some great people that I met, but I also met some of the shittiest people ever. And again, I was already doing jiu-jitsu, so it was like a yin and yang lifestyle. You know, one was hurting
At,
the other. So
at which point do you decide that jiu-jitsu will be the livelihood? This is what you're going to do for a living. This is how you're going to
well,
feed your family.
well, I kind of did it smart. So when I opened my first gym, I opened it with Yves Edwards, who is one of the first UFC fighters in Houston. Tim Crater, who is one of my mentors and one of my best friends. He was only a brown belt then. I was a purple belt. Yves might have been a blue belt, but he was a UFC fighter. We did this just as a place to train. Things fell apart at our home gym, and basically it was closed. I mean, that's a long story of how all that happened. But the gym closed down, and we had nowhere to train. We were all competing, you know, a lot then. So I said, let's just scrap some money together and rent out a warehouse or something to where we could train. Not looking to open. I had a career. Everyone had a career, except for Yves. He was the only one making money out of fighting, right? So let's just open a place so we could train. This little fight club kind of thing, and we could train with each other as hard as we want, just prepare. And then it turned into a business. You know, it was literally $300 a month in a crappy part of town called Acres Homes, in a basically a storage facility. You know, homeless people would be coming in. Someone got shot across the street at this bar that was there. Like the first week we were there, there was no AC, no heat, water. It would come in. It was awesome because we trained super hard. But there was one lady that signed up in the 4 years that we were there, and there was no kids program. So it was just the kind of thing, you know.
A true fight club.
People are real nostalgic about that. So I was a promoter through most of all that time, and then like after I got my black belt, that was in 2008. I was traveling to this area of town called Katy in the suburbs, teaching privates to these guys. And I was like, man, this is a really nice community. They have great schools. My son was about to enter middle school. Housing is great. You know, I was living in the city before that. So maybe this would be a good place. I always heard that there was one school in this area, and the owner was not a good person. You should open up out here, and I did. And like before I even opened, we had like 50 students pre-signed up. You know, so at that point, a little before that, I was like, burn the ships. I'm going all in. You know, I'm not going to fail at this. We already have a school. We have you know, and I probably had like 30, 40 students at the Piedmont location. But I had belief that we could, that we would do well. And it took a while, but we did. And I don't regret it. I don't regret leaving the music business.
What made you have this high confidence that this is going to work? I mean, you have no way of knowing this.
I mean, I had a taste of it from our first gym. And I believe in myself, and I believe with the people around me. And then I had a lot of people showing me and telling me support. So, I mean, I'm not afraid of taking risks. I'm not afraid of taking a loss. You know, I'm not afraid of failure. I'm gonna learn from failure, and I'm gonna overcome it. And it'll be a opportunity to learn and grow and just redirect my direction. You know, so
is
like,
that part of the success in life, just in general?
Absolutely.
Having this opportunity to step back, look at the errors, mistakes, and failures that we have experienced, and make pivot points off of that.
100%. Like I hate to lose, I hate to fail, but I accept it as part of the risk of life, right? And I'm not afraid of it. Okay. But anyone that's successful in anything in life, sports or business, or they've failed many, many times, probably more so than the guys that aren't successful. They're willing to take more chances, and then they learn from those failures.
So why is it so hard for everybody else to do the same thing?
Because they give up. I'm not sure. They don't have the discipline. It's like, I'm not sure, because it always puzzles me why people that I see, really capable people, giving up on themselves, you know, when they're close to reaching a goal, or they don't believe in themselves. And that could be from the way they were raised. Could be from, you know, being bullied, or the parents being shitty parents and not building self-confidence in their children. And some people that came from all those things became great, you know, but it's harder for them. It's harder for someone to accomplish something in self-belief if their whole life someone has told them they were pieces of shit or whatever, you know. But maybe that's why, because of preconceived reflections of themselves or other people talking negative to them and all those things. And I mean, it, like I said, I'm not scared to fail, but it definitely doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to lose. It doesn't feel good to let yourself down, let others down, but you just like, screw it. I just want to get it that much more. I'm done with the pity party. Let's go.
Well, I wish more people thought it the same way as you were describing.
Yeah,
Because
the world would be better,
would be
right?
different.
The
Absolutely.
world would be better because now it's like, oh, I failed. It's your fault. Oh, it's because I don't have what you have, or you're different than me, or everyone wants to blame somebody else, and instead of looking in the mirror and being accountable.
Yeah,
that's
the hard part for some.
Jiu-Jitsu teaches you that, right? Jiu-Jitsu teaches you accountability.
Hey, listen, that's how I look at it. I mean, things happen. We don't always win. We lose often. We make errors. Life happens. But unless we acknowledge that we are in charge and we are making those choices, how else are we going to grow? How else are we going to change? So that's the beautiful part behind Jiu-Jitsu, at least in my eyes. Jeff, listen, before we start wrapping this up slowly, what I do at the end of every episode, I have a question for you from our previous guest. Now, he had no clue who was answering the question. So think about a question in dark. And you might actually know him. Robbie D'Onofrio was here on our previous episode, and he asked, what do you value most in life? Now, this is deep. But if you had to narrow one thing, the one thing that has the most value in your life, what would it be?
I mean, it definitely has to be God, I'm a Christian, so I realize what our purpose on life is for.
What is your purpose on life?
To honor God, to love God with all our heart, all our soul, all our mind, and to love our neighbors as ourselves. So basically, this is a whole long topic, right? But I'm not embarrassed or ashamed to talk about it, because you'd be a fool to if you understood it. You're gonna be empty in life if you think it's only about you. And we're talking a lot about accomplishments and all that, but we're not here for us, We're here to honor God and to help others, So that's definitely not a jiu-jitsu thing, but you will find a lot of.
But actually, I don't know. It's life. Jiu-Jitsu is life.
I think look, everyone's gonna run into that realization one day or another. So I hope and pray people learn that sooner than later.
Well, in some ways, I look at this from a perspective. We can't train on our own. We love this thing, but we need to respect our training partners. Without them, we are nothing. We are nobody. We more often than not, we gotta look right next to the guy who's standing next to us, and we gotta give them a pat on the back. We gotta appreciate what they do for us, because without them, we got nothing, zero. I mean, you know this better than anybody. I remember this when you walk into the place and there is one guy. There's nobody else to train with because jiu-jitsu was so small.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, good for you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Jeff, thanks for hanging out here. And we didn't even touch any of your online stuff. Like, I got so sidetracked with life with this conversation. But you have huge presence online. You do some amazing things for your local community, but also you're reaching out. If anybody wants to reach out and connect with you, where are you at? Like, share, where are you at? Instagram, websites, where are you? Where can anybody find you?
Instagram and Facebook, o.g.jeffmessina. On
Where's
Instagram,
this OG coming from?
People I don't give myself nicknames. I've had a lot of nicknames over the years. Luckily, they're good ones. So people call me that because I've been around in Houston a lot longer than most of the people. And I have a lot of students, and so people call me that, original gangster, I mean, OG is like, what an OG is.
Yeah.
Someone that's done their time and put in the work. So I was like, all right, I'll go with that one. For Instagram,
Besides Machado, are you the OG over there?
Nah, man. And there's plenty. I was probably the 5th black belt in Houston. The first Houston-born one would have been, or not Houston-born, but American would have been Eric Williams. And you have Travis Took, Alvis Solis. There's a handful of guys that were a little before me and or right around the same time. But like every school in Houston now has at least 10 black belts probably. And there was 5 of us, for a long time, and then of course in Houston, Dracolino came here, and got a lot of big names that moved here eventually, but the old days, I've been around since pretty much the first generation of the jiu-jitsu in our area.
Well, good for you. That footprint is important, and what you are doing in the area and everywhere, it's important to the growth of the community, and it appears as you're doing great things. The passion really radiates. I mean, it's just through this conversation, it's so amazing to see people who do good things, and so for that, I do appreciate you. I thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you do. We need more people like you.
Yeah, thanks for your time, man.
All right, Jeff. Let's wrap this up for today. Thanks for hanging out with me too.
Awesome, brother.
Later.
Thank you for listening to RŌL Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.